Breaking tonight, streaming at 5:30, the Middle East on edge. A chaotic and fast-moving situation as the U.S. and Israel pound targets inside Iran, and Iran firing back across the region. We're tracking the conflict with the very human toll on the ground, including when U.S. charter flights could finally start moving. Tensions rising, the U.S. sinks an Iranian ship and NATO shoots down a missile headed toward Turkey, a key ally. The show of force and the fight in Congress. Fake voice fraud. Scammers used what sounded like her daughter's voice, and in minutes, a family was out $2,500. A new AI kidnapping scam targeting parents tonight. Senate showdown, the race for the U.S. Senate in Louisiana heating up tonight. Governor Jeff Landry backing Julia Letlow, while political insiders say one impeachment vote started the feud and how Senator Cassidy is firing back. New rules in the friendly skies. United now requiring headphones on board, and Southwest responding to complaints about its new boarding process. What all this means for your spring break travel. SEC Showtime. Tiger fans sending Coach Kim Mulkey and her squad off in style as LSU heads to South Carolina for the SEC tournament, which team they're waiting to meet in Friday's game. And rain gear ready, Henry Blakes is standing by to map out when we could see more.
You're watching WAFB's streaming newscast, live and local, with Dion Guillory. This is 9 News at 5:30.
Advice for the American people in the region is to be ready to go quickly once you receive that call.
Tommy Pigott, Principal Deputy Spokesperson for the Department of State, warning all Americans in the Middle East to get ready to leave immediately. Good evening, and thank you for streaming us here at 5:30. I'm Dion Guillory. There's a chaotic situation on the ground in the Middle East as the U.S. and Israel hammer targets inside Iran, and Iran continues to retaliate. The State Department tonight urging U.S. nationals to leave 14 countries in that region. Matt Gutman starting us off tonight from Tel Aviv.
It's a war fought mostly in the skies, but on the ground, civilians are bearing the brunt. In Iran, thousands poured into the streets for a mass funeral for what health officials there say were at least 175 girls killed in an elementary school. And nearby, rows of graves seen awaiting coffins. Israeli military spokesman Nadav Shoshani.
See them line about some of the details of it. I can tell you that we haven't found any connection to IDF operations.
So you're saying it's not the IDF that attacked that school, but you're also suggesting that it might be some sort of misinformation?
I'm suggesting taking caution when using information that's provided by a regime that massacres their own people.
And across the region, commercial jets are grounded. The State Department says around 1 million Americans are stranded. President Trump acknowledging that the repatriation hasn't been smooth.
Why isn't there an evacuation plan, and who do you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly.
Kat Spitzer says that quick reaction left her stuck in Dubai.
That's been a little tough when you sort of hear that the government is kind of like, nope, there's nothing.
And across the region, the dreaded routine of sirens and missiles, and in Israel, bomb shelters.
Just closed the door to the bomb shelter. Dozens of people in here. You can see people bring their dogs, obviously their children. They've just come off the street, and this is the rhythm here in Tel Aviv.
Fleeing that routine is Tamar Rubenstein, who just arrived in Israel for a visit, pregnant with twins.
I'm getting close. I'm 23 weeks, so I didn't want to get to the point where I wouldn't be cleared to travel anymore.
Her exodus, 7 hours by train, then bus to Egypt, then flights to Athens, Munich, and finally Chicago.
So why not just wait until the missiles end and stay in a safe place?
I don't know how long this is going to go on for. There's such a lack of clarity.
Secretary Rubio has said that the U.S. is going to start to organize charter flights at some point soon to get people home. But given that this is an active conflict zone still, that's going to take a lot of coordination and deconfliction, and that means that those flights might be slow to arrive here. Matt Gutman, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
Louisiana Democrats are accusing President Trump of blurring the lines between the executive and legislative branches. That's because, according to Article 1 of the Constitution, Congress is the only branch with the power to declare war. Both Democratic lawmakers in Louisiana are now calling for a vote on a war powers resolution to reiterate those separations of power.
I mean, Stevie Wonder could see that we're at war. I mean, at the end of the day, The War Powers Act is real clear. I mean, no president, no one person, have American troops engaged in war without the approval of the American people. That's what the Constitution says.
The action that we were seeking to prevent, or at least to be more thoughtful with, has already happened. So now the action will be next to prevent further damage and or to at least make sure that there is an adequate plan to protect our soldiers and to protect our flanks.
The Senate is taking a procedural vote regarding President Trump's actions in Iran. If passed, it will give lawmakers the chance to make congressional approval mandatory before additional attacks can be carried out. It is not likely to pass, and if it did, the president would veto it. As that vote happens, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying today more U.S. bombers are arriving in the Middle East as the U.S. and Israel intensify the strikes against Iran. Aaron Navarro continuing our team coverage from Capitol Hill.
The Defense Department released video of the moment it says a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean as the U.S. intensifies its military campaign against Tehran.
American forces have struck more than 2,000 targets, destroying hundreds and hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones.
At a Pentagon briefing Wednesday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the U.S. and Israeli air forces will soon have complete control of Iranian airspace.
It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders.
Secretary Hegseth said the U.S. military is just getting started with more bombers on the way. The comments come amid an effort by some lawmakers to rein in the Trump administration from using any more force against Iran.
Taking America to war in Iran was done by President Trump without meaningfully consulting the American people or Congress.
The Senate is set to vote Wednesday on the War Powers resolution. It is expected to fail in the Republican-controlled chamber.
You don't have to authorize military operations. They can go on as long as the president wants them to go on until you cut off funding.
The Pentagon also released photos of 4 of the 6 service members killed in an Iranian strike on a U.S. operations center in Kuwait.
To the families of our fallen, we grieve with you today.
And the White House says it is chartering flights to help evacuate Americans stranded in the region. Aaron Navarro, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
All right, let's talk about your weather now, because it's been a gloomy day with rounds of rain, and you'll want to keep that rain gear handy because there's more wet weather expected. Henry Blakes is here with your First Alert forecast. Henry.
Definitely not the sunniest days across the Baton Rouge area. Still looking like that as we get ready to undergo sunset. But you'll notice as we look at the Mississippi on our Sky 9 camera, you can see some of those showers still in the distance from LaBerge. So many of us not done with the wet weather, at least not yet. But in the Baton Rouge Metro, it's cloudy. Some of us in parts of town getting a little bit of light drizzle. The wind is light out of the southeast at 11 miles per hour. Radar and satellite is going to show you that the showers and even rumbles of thunder, they're not looking as impressive as they were an hour ago. In fact, you'll see over Point Coupee Parish, some of you had some pretty moderate downpours across parts of the area. But as we continue to lose that daytime heating, gradually these showers are going to dissipate. But for some of us, it's going to take some time. That's kept us a little cooler, that forecast. That's expected when it rains. 69 in Baton Rouge, Gonzales at 67, but where we're not getting much rain, we are in the low to mid 70s along and east of Interstate 55. So the rain chances gradually diminishing as we go into the evening and overnight, becoming practically zero after midnight. So things are improving by then. But for tomorrow morning, it is going to be cloudy, maybe a little bit of patchy fog for some of us. Otherwise, mostly cloudy and mild, starting out only in the 60s. So we will be getting back in the 80s tomorrow. But Dion, it does look like we've got more chance of rain coming in the forecast. So we'll talk about that in a bit.
All right, that umbrella will be handy. All right, thank you. All right, so scary story here from an Oregon mother who is telling her story tonight after she says her family lost more than $2,000 in a scam, and she thinks artificial intelligence was used in the whole thing. Michaela Armstrong with that one.
It was really scary. It was so real.
A mother named Tina says she was in shock after picking up a call from a scammer that said her daughter was in an accident.
They said, don't call the police. She's not hurt, but don't call the police. We can't get the police involved.
Then the scammer eventually said her daughter was kidnapped and that she needed to pay up to get her back.
You need to send $2,500 to this bank account right away. They said she stumbled upon a drug deal and it cost us some money, so we need to be compensated for what it cost us.
Tina says she felt the call was odd and suspected it was made using AI. So she decided to ask her daughter herself. Her daughter was fine, and she thought her family dodged the scam. But then around the same time, her husband received a similar call, but this time about another daughter being kidnapped, and he sent the money.
Right now, with our current circumstances, that's $2,500 is like $1 million to us.
The financial loss could take them months to recover, and she says it is all due to a scam that creates panic and forces you to make tough decisions.
They play on your emotions and they use your loved one, whether it's a granddaughter or a grandson or a mom or a dad. That's what they're doing. And then they were forceful.
When dealing with scammers, the Washington County Sheriff's Office suggests you should contact your child directly using their number. Call another family member who may know where they are. Ask specific questions the scammer wouldn't know, and never send money or gift cards based on a phone call.
It's just surreal right now because I'm just flabbergasted. I think we're pretty smart people. I almost fell for it, and had they not started changing their story, I probably would have fallen for it.
Now Tina says her family has learned a valuable lesson, and she hopes others don't make the same mistake.
It makes you think. It makes you really think about what you're putting out there.
In other news tonight, analysts across the country are looking at the results of midterm elections in several states. Those Tuesday elections mark the official start of the 2026 midterm cycle. One of those key races is in Texas, where incumbent Senator John Cornyn will now face off against State Attorney General Ken Paxton in the Republican runoffs. Neither candidate got enough votes to win outright, which means longtime senior Senator Cornyn will now face off against a more conservative candidate.
John Cornyn said he was concerned about a bunch of radicals who were going to show up to vote today. It looks like you all showed up.
I refuse to allow a flawed, self-centered, and shameless candidate like Ken Paxton risk everything we've worked so hard to build over these many years.
In other parts of the country, candidates close to President Trump are winning their way to the general elections. In North Carolina, Trump ally and former GOP chair Michael Whatley won his primary and will face Roy Cooper in their upcoming Senate election. Well, it's a scandal that rocked Minnesota and opened the floodgates for ICE enforcement there. Tonight, Governor Tim Walz is in the hot seat answering lawmaker questions about how billions of dollars ended up in the hands of fraudsters. Miley Martinez was there.
This fraud scandal caused Governor Tim Walz to give up his bid for re-election. But Wednesday, he says Minnesota is cracking down on the fraudsters who fleeced the state.
Billions of taxpayer dollars were stolen from social service programs while warnings piled up, whistleblowers spoke out, and state officials chose delay and denial over action.
Oversight and Government Reform Committee Chairman James Comer ripping into Governor Tim Walz Wednesday.
But I see folks making the claim that, well, you wouldn't have any fraud if you just cut all these programs, if you just zeroed them out. That is true. If we did not provide food for our children, no one would steal from that program. But there would also be a lot of hungry children.
Fraud wasn't the only issue on the docket.
And I hope you learned some lessons from your last hearing with me on the Oversight Committee. Have you learned anything since
I did,
then?
that if I didn't speak up, 2 of my people would be dead, Congresswoman.
Walz and his attorney general argued that the Trump administration used the fraud as carte blanche for ICE to wreak havoc on the state.
The Trump administration, on the pretext of fighting fraud, unleashed over 3,000 masked, armed agents on the streets of Minnesota. And as a result, 2 U.S. citizens were killed by federal agents, Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
Ellison says the feds are now boxing the state out of the investigations into their deaths. As added retribution, last week the White House said they're freezing $243 million in Medicare funding for the state over these fraud concerns. On Monday, state lawyers sued, warning that pulling those funds will hurt low-income Minnesota families. In Washington, I'm Molly Martinez.
The race for Senate is heating up here at home as Governor Landry threw his support behind Congresswoman Julia Letlow. Political insiders tell WAFB this comes after months of lobbying the White House for President Trump's endorsement, which she received in January, and phone calls with some major donors urging their support against Senator Bill Cassidy. WAFB political analyst Jim Inkster says all of this stems from Senator Cassidy's vote to impeach President Trump after the January 6 riots.
The governor and the president are both with somebody else other than an incumbent in a Louisiana primary involving a guy who's been in office 12 years, and he made one bad vote. Well, that one vote is a cardinal sin with the president. And Governor Landry, who, by the way, was supported by Senator Cassidy, has decided that his allegiance to the president's more important than his allegiance to the senior senator of Louisiana.
Cassidy clapping back today saying, quote, "This is just a shameless attempt to distract from liberal Letlow's illegal stock trades and pattern of breaking the law." State Treasurer John Fleming went as far as to say Governor Landry is interfering in the election. We have all those details waiting for you right now in the 9 News app. The LSU women's basketball team on their way to South Carolina tonight for this year's SEC tournament. Fans sent them off in style with a quick ceremony in the PMAC this afternoon. LSU is the number 4 seed, so they are set to play on Friday afternoon at 1:30 on ESPN, taking on the winner of Oklahoma versus Florida or Mississippi State. The team will practice tomorrow at Bon Secours Arena before postseason action starts. This marks the 5th SEC tournament send-off under Coach Kim Mulkey. We're back in 2 minutes.